Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I actually won an arc of this a couple of years ago before I think I even started my channel, and I'm just now getting around to it because I'm awful. This is a young adult contemporary story that follows our two main characters, Jude and Noah, who are twins. This is a dual perspective, and Noah's perspective takes place when they are 13 years old, and Jude's perspective takes place when they are 16 years old. At the beginning, in Noah's perspective, you see that at 13 years old they are very different, but that Noah is really wanting to become an artist, and that his sister Jude is on kind of a different path. But then when you go forward to the times when they are 16 years old, you see that they've actually kind of switched places, and Jude is now this artist and Noah is kind of on the path that Jude was on previously. And so the whole thing is kind of figuring out what happened and where this disconnect was and why they kind of like borderline hate each other now and what all happened with them. But that isn't even the tip of the iceberg. I've heard this book described much like that for the past couple of years, and I haven't really wanted to jump in necessarily. I wasn't really intrigued enough. But this book's themes cover family, art, love and different kinds of love, and forgiveness and grief, and all of these things that you can't really just encapsulate with a synopsis. But if you enjoy any of those kinds of topics and really feeling a lot of emotions, then you'll probably enjoy anything by Jandy Nelson, honestly. First off, let me kind of talk about the world building, because this book is written in a kind of magical realism way. Both of the different protagonists have like a different, weird, whimsical kind of narration style. So you have Noah, who is kind of this really out there, he's an artist, they're both artists, but he at the beginning is definitely the main artist, and he has this narration style where it seems like he's seeing things but he's not. Like, it's definitely magical realism, but the way that he describes things are so magical. He has this very out there narration style where you're like, is he seeing this stuff? And he's not hallucinating or anything, but at times you're like, is he? It is a very unique narration style that I definitely enjoyed, and it's that kind of magical realism that I really like. It definitely leans on the side of realism instead of like magical realism that's fantasy. This is magical realism that kind of is a description style and isn't actually magic happening. Then we have Jude's narration style, which is a little more set in reality, but at the same time she has this tendency to have like magical thinking as well, but in more of a contained way. So her grandmother left her this book that they consider kind of the Bible, but it's not, obviously. And it's all of these kind of like old wives' tales and things you can do and kind of like new agey type stuff that everyone kind of compiled, like all of her friends compiled. And she kind of sees the world through this lens, and her kind of like wackiness, eccentricity comes out through these little Bible passages and the things that she kind of believes through that, and the way that she's kind of trying to control her world through that. So while Noah is kind of out of control in a different universe, she is as well, but in a more contained way. It's a really interesting juxtaposition. So while I'm talking about that, let me just go right on to the characters of Jude and Noah. I loved both of them for different reasons, and I found myself, when the POVs would switch, constantly wanting to get back to the other one, but also loving the one I was in. So there wasn't necessarily a perspective that I enjoyed more. I think overall as characters, I do enjoy Jude a tad bit more. I think that's mostly because she has this kind of anxiety to her that I relate to a lot. Like, she definitely tries to control her world in a borderline OCD way. Like, she definitely has things that she does to try to kind of get luck or have something like not bad happen or whatever, all from this little like Bible that she inherited from her grandmother. So I definitely relate to that more than I relate to Noah's way of kind of coping with things. So I enjoyed both perspectives equally, but definitely for different reasons, and I think I kind of honed in on Jude a little bit more. The other thing I really liked about characters was that Noah is actually gay, and he is kind of coming to terms with his sexuality, but not necessarily in a coming out narrative way. And I really appreciated how he was sort of coming out at certain points, but at the same time wasn't, and his whole story didn't revolve around his sexuality. It was definitely a major part of his story because he's going through adolescence, and who you're attracted to is definitely a major player in anyone's adolescence, whether they're attracted to people or not, or attracted to the same gender or not, or whatever. So I really liked how it was a plot point, but it wasn't the only plot point with him. He wasn't just reduced to his sexuality and his whole identity being just his sexuality. It was everything between his sexuality and him being a twin and being a part of this family and also being an artist. Like, everything. He was a fully formed individual, and they both were, and I really appreciate that. This book also focuses a lot on family, and I really enjoyed that dynamic, not just between the siblings, but between their parents and them, and how they relate to their parents, and how you relate to your parents differently as you grow up. Like, how you picture them as kids, and then how you kind of relate to them as a teenager and growing up. That was really interesting. And also a discussion about love, whether that's familial love or romantic love, and how love can form different ways, and it's not all the same, or one right and one wrong, and that something can look really wrong and be wrong, but at the same time not be, like, I'm being very vague because obviously I can't go completely into it, but I really liked the discussion on love and love forming at different times in your life and soulmates and stuff like that. Like, all of that spoke to me on a very deep level, and I really enjoyed the art stuff in here as well. The whole family, for the most part, are kind of artists, and they're in these, like, artist circles, and I am not a particularly artistic person as far as traditional art. Like, I do consider makeup to be an art form, and I do consider, like, videos to potentially kind of be an art form and stuff like that, but I'm not like a, you know, painter, drawer, sculptor, whatever. But these characters were, and it almost made me, like, want to go to a museum or, like, learn something about it or, like, sculpt, and I've never had any desire to sculpt at all. But this book, they were so into it that you could feel that, and I really appreciate that, because if you are starting to get interested in, like, a character's interests, that speaks to how well those characters are written. Lastly, I'll kind of wrap it up and talk about the plot, because I've already kind of talked about it a little bit. Again, I can't really go into a ton of it, but like I said, I enjoyed both POVs. I enjoyed that both POVs are kind of moving forward towards one destination, and they kind of come together at the end, and I really just appreciated that journey. It wasn't like I was constantly like, okay, how is this gonna end up? Like, what is this huge mystery, da-da-da-da? No, like, that was in the back of my head a little bit, but it's like I was just enjoying being with these characters and learning about them and seeing what they're going through and feeling their emotions. And, like, both of these characters are very passionate people, and, like, you can feel, like, everything that they're feeling, and it takes a lot to have that with a book for me. Like, yes, I can be very invested in characters, but to, like, actually kind of be pulled through what they're being pulled through happens very rarely. And it's only happened, I think, again with Jandy Nelson's other book. Like, she just does it for me. I just love everything about her writing. I love how she weaves things together. I love how complex her characters are. I pretty much have no complaints about this story. All of these characters are realistic people who make mistakes, but who also learn from their mistakes, and it's just beautiful. If you loved her other book, you'll love this one. If you want books that handle grief and just love and everything well, just read this. So if it's not entirely obvious by now, I'll give you this Sun a 5 out of 5 stars. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of I'll Give You the Sun. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!